Hi coders, welcome to Code Jana, and in this video we are going to take a look at how you can install Python 3.9.1 in Windows 10. Alright, so let's get started. Now we are going to open Chrome. You can open Firefox or Edge if you prefer, and we are going to navigate to python.org. Alright, and now that is opened, you can either navigate to Downloads and then click on this Python 3.9.1. However, please note that it cannot be used with Windows 7 or earlier version if you're currently working with either Windows 7 or earlier versions. In that case, you need to click on this View the full list of downloads button. So let's click on this one first. And from here, you can navigate to any of the previous version of Python. However, if you're working with Windows 10, then all you need to do is click on this download Python 3.9.1. So let's click on it. And as you can see in the bottom left corner, it has initiated the setup. So it's currently being downloaded. It's only 29 MB and it's done. So I'm going to click on it, and it is going to ask for permission whether I should let this app run or not. So there we go. All right, now remember to click on add Python 3.9 to path. So click on install now. And now you need to verify. So we are going to click on yes. And after this process, you will have Python 3.9.1 in your system. All right, so as you can see, the setup was successful. So let's click on close. All right, now we are going to check whether our Python installation was correct or not. Okay, so let's open command prompt. I'm going to press Windows R to open this run panel, and we're going to type cmd and press enter. So let's access the Python shell. So we're going to type Python, and here we can do some basic mathematics to test whether Python is successfully getting our commands and spitting out answers. So 10 plus 2 is 12. All right, and now we're going to test whether this letter A in string form is greater than letter B in string form or not. And if you already know that the ASCII code of A is lesser than B, so the answer to this particular question should be false. So let's see. And yes, it is false. So currently our Python installation is working very nicely. So let's exit out of this. For exiting, you need to type exit and then parenthesis. And now we are currently in our command prompt shell. All right, so let's exit out of it as well. And that's it. And today we are going to install another IDE. I'm talking about Microsoft Vscode. So let's start downloading it. First of all, we'll open Chrome and search for Vscode. Vscode is short for Visual Studio Code. And click on this link, and it's working quite fast. For this tutorial, we are going to install Vscode for Windows. But if you want to download it for other platforms, you can click on this link and choose your particular operating system, whether it's Linux or Apple Mac. So let's click on Windows, and my system is Windows 10 64-bit. So IDM has already grabbed the link, and let's start download. Vscode is significantly lighter in size than PyCharm. PyCharm was approximately 277 MB, and as you can see, Vscode is just 56 MB. Alright, so it is downloaded. Now let's close the Chrome window and click open. Now accept the agreement and click next. As you can see, Vscode is going to be installed in C drive. We are not going to touch that. Click next, next again, add to path, and just click next. We don't need to edit anything else. If we need them, we are going to do it one by one. You can create a desktop icon of Vscode if you need. Since I'm going to be needing it on everyday basis, I'm going to create the desktop icon and click next and then install. That's the final step here. Launch Visual Studio Code. When we hit finish, Visual Studio Code will launch itself. All right, so it has downloaded successfully and we have installed it successfully as well. So let's create a simple project as we did with PyCharm. If you haven't seen that video, kindly watch it. Now let's click new file. Write a simple code. such as print hello universe. Let's click file and hit save. It's going to ask us how you want to save it. If you don't want to save it as plain text, click on it and save it in Python format, that is .py. Let's search for it. Python should be here. See, Python. All right. It has attached .py with it. File name is print hello universe. Let's change that to simple hello universe .py. Okay, and it's currently going to Python programming. That's where we want it to be. Save it, and there you go. As soon as we change the file format to .py to Python file, all of these things started lighting up that we don't have currently linter installed. We don't have interpreter selected. We'll do that in a second. But let's try to run this code right from here. Let's try to run this program by clicking on this run Python file in terminal, or we can just right click it, run Python file in terminal. All right, so in terminal, it is trying to execute that file. Now, what error is it currently found? Run this program again, and boom, since we did not have a Python interpreter selected, the system did not understand any of the code that we just typed. So if you do run into that error, kindly just select an interpreter and it will be golden. Today, let's take a look at how to install PyCharm IDE for Python on Windows 10. So my system is 64-bit. Let me just cross-check it once again. So it is 64-bit operating system. So we will install the 64-bit version of PyCharm. Let's open Chrome and search for PyCharm. There you get the website of JetBrains.com, who are the developer of PyCharm and many other IDEs for popular programming languages. Let's click on it. Okay, so right then and there we have the download option in front of us. So click on download, and then you need to choose between professional and community edition. If you're just beginning to learn Python, then you should download the community edition. It's free, open source, and perfect for beginners. If you're developing for a company and you have the budget to handle the cost of professional version of PyCharm, you can download this one. For now, let's download the community version. Click download. Okay, so the download is 277 MB. So click start download. My IDM grabbed it. In your case, if you don't have IDM installed, the Chrome download manager will begin downloading PyCharm. So now let's wait for a while. Let's download it. Okay, so finally only 5 seconds left. 2, 1, and done. Alright, let's open it. So this is the setup window and we only need to click next. Here's the location, starting from C drive to your program files and then JetBrains folder. You can change the name of it if you want. I'll keep it as it is and click next. So here we can select whether you want to download a 32-bit version or 64-bit version. PyCharm has already detected that my system is a 64-bit version, so it will create a desktop shortcut of 64-bit launcher. After that, we can add PyCharm to the path directory. So let's click on it. You can click on add open folder as project in the context menu. If you want to right click any file and then open that particular folder in PyCharm. Right now I'm not going to do that. You can also create associations with .py, means Python files, so that they open by default with PyCharm. I'm going to use Vscode to edit my Python files by default. So I'm not going to select it, but if you are going to use PyCharm as a default, then you should select it. So let's click on next. Don't need to change anything. Click install and wait a while. Okay, so it is done now. Since I selected add PyCharm directory to path, it's asking me to reboot. But right now I'm not going to reboot, we will manually reboot later. Click finish and let's try to open PyCharm software. Okay, now it's asking me to import settings from any previous installation. Since we installed it for the first time at this moment, select do not import settings and click OK. And here we are greeted with JetBrains privacy policy. You can confirm after reading this. I'm not going to insinuate that you don't need to read it. Read it carefully and then select I confirm. Further, click continue. Since we don't want any tracking stats being sent to PyCharm, let's select don't send. Now the user interface theme. If you like light theme, then you can select this one. And if you want a dark theme, if you like to work at night, then you can select the Darkula theme, which is I think a pun on Dracula. It would be funny if it had been named Dracula with fangs coming from the top. Okay, so I'm going to select the Darkula theme and then next. So here are the feature plugins that PyCharm is promoting to us. Right now we don't need any of these plugins. We'll install the plugins as we go along. Let's start using PyCharm. Alright, so our whole installation is done and now we can test if PyCharm is successfully installed and we can begin creating Python projects. So let's create a really small Hello Universe project. Click Create New Project. Here you can define the location, and personally I think you should start using Dropbox or any other cloud service to save these projects rather than saving in the C drive. So I'm going to click on this browse button, the folder icon, and then I'm going to navigate to my D drive. Okay, so let's select Kushkant Live and Dropbox. And in Dropbox, I'm going to create a new folder with the name Python and hit OK. And after that, select that folder and hit OK. As you can see, the location has been updated and then click Create. Welcome to PyCharm. Alright, thank you. And now it is creating a virtual environment for us. See, the virtual environment will let us compile, debug and run the whole program from PyCharm. So let's wait till it finishes. Alright, now that it is done, let's close this tip. And if you don't want to see tips from PyCharm on the startup, then you can select this one. Now it will not show any tip from the startup. Close. Now you can see this folder that we had made earlier. You can right click this folder and create a new file. For this example, we only need to create a Python file. Click on it, hit as such. I'm going to name it Hello Universe and then hit Python file. As you can see on this tab, Hello Universe.py is updated. We can begin creating first lines of code with Python. So we'll start off something very simple. Just print Hello Universe. Alright, and let's try to run this. You can right click the page itself and click Run Hello Universe. And see, the terminal is right at the bottom and you can see Hello Universe has been printed successfully. You can also see that it has gone to the D drive and then executed hello universe.py file. That's how it is showing us the result. Let's hide it. You can click on the right corner of PyCharm and click Run Hello Universe from there as well. See, same result. And finally, if you really want to excel at Python and any other programming language, you must learn shortcuts. So for this one, you have Shift F10 to run your code. See, same result. So there are multiple ways to run a program in PyCharm. You have just seen 3 of them, and let's, just for the fun, let's click on Run and run Hello Universe. So there are 4 ways to run your code. And the quickest way is actually to press Shift F10. There we go. Okay, today we are going to take a look at what are variables in Python. So let's keep it really simple. Variables are words that you can assign a value to. Either you can assign a fixed value or a user can assign their own values in terminal. It depends on the program about what kind of variables you want. So let's see an example of it. Okay, so variables can be just a single letter, or you can write complete words in it as well. So this is also a valid variable, and same as this. Both of these are valid variables. In some, we have not assigned a variable. Let's look at a very small program so that I can tell you how variables actually work. So let's assign another single letter variable as b and assign it a value of 5. Okay, so let's add these two numbers. So we have done an addition of a plus b and assigned its value to our new variable sum. This is how you create variables which are calculated on the basis of previously defined variables. Now we can print the value of sum. So let's run this program and see if our value of sum is 8 or not. And see, it is 8. So here we have assigned fixed values to our variables. We can also let the users assign their own values at the runtime. So let's delete the values that we have assigned and write the function for assigning values by the user. These are inbuilt functions that were designed when Python was being built. These functions allow you to make programs which are simple all the way to really complex programs like machine learning and artificial intelligence. Let's type the function. So input in brackets is the function for assigning values by the user. Right now I have not displayed any message and I'm not going to complicate this program right now. Let's take it step by step. Let's run this program and you can see that my terminal is currently empty because I have not printed any message for the user. But still, when you click on it, you can see the cursor, and let's type 10 as the value of A, enter, and then let's type 20 as the value of B, and let's press enter. The answer should come 30. Okay, so the answer is coming 10 and 20. I think it kind of misjudged it, like when we say 1 and 1 is 11. Okay, so what happened there? Actually, whenever you assign a value, it assigns it in string format, and when it adds two strings, it just places first value on the first half and second value after that. So that's how you get 10 first and then 20 next. Suppose, just for fun, let's assign 3 is equal to input and then sum. What do you think would happen if I type 3 values? So let's run our program. Okay, let's click the terminal and assign our values 10, 20, 30. What do you think is going to happen? I'm really sure that it's going to print out the result as 10, 20, 30 in the same line without any space. Let's see. Okay, it's done the same thing. So since all of these are currently string, I hope you've seen my data type video in Python to better understand why this is happening. For now, let's just fix this and then we'll come back to it. We want to set every value to integer type rather than string type. That's why we have a function int brackets, and whatever comes inside that bracket is converted into integer data type. We can do the same thing in other places as well. Like in sum, we can write int and then a in brackets so that the value of a will be assigned as integer data type. So there are two places you can do this, either on the first one or the next one. Okay, so now what do you think is going to happen? It's going to correctly print out 10 plus 20 plus 30, that is 60. Let's see. Now 10, 20, 30. And the answer is 60, as it should be. So before you begin writing variables and then assigning values to them, you must understand how data types work and what sort of values you can assign to variables. So those are the variables. Now we understood the simple language that variables are words that you can assign values to, and you can use those variables throughout your program. In technical terms, variables are containers that acquire values according to the programmer or the user depending on the program. So that's all there is to it to variables. And today we are going to take a look at what are data types in Python. Okay, so let's start in a really simple way. Data types are types of data that Python supports while programming. So let's start really simple way about what you would call all of these things. Okay, so what would you call food? Text, okay, and then these would be numbers, and this would be a state. So a text in Python is known as a string, and a string in Python and other languages is written with inverted commas and apostrophe. So you can write a string like food, this is also a valid way, and then food. Now where would you write with single quote and double quotes? Well, when you want to include some words which are in single quotes, then you want to use double quotes from start to end. For example, if you type it's like this, then the program will delete the last apostrophe that you type, and if you type it again, it's going to create another one. See, so S is left out. In such cases, you would type the double quotes. The automatic insertion of PyCharm is currently giving us trouble. So this would be a valid use of double quotes. A multi-line paragraph would be written as 3 quotes like this. So let's say we are typing some email. Hello coders. This is on data types in Python. So there you go. That's a multi-line paragraph, and it's supported via 3 quotes. Now numbers. The number data type in Python is known as integers and floats. Integers are whole numbers and their negative counterparts. So that means 0 through 9 are valid integer numbers, along with -1 to -9, because we know that other numbers are just combination of these primary numbers. Now the state, true and false. These are known as Boolean values in Python. Suppose you want to know a condition, whether it is true or false. That's when you use it. For example, if you want to know whether 5 is greater than 6, what do you think would be the Boolean result of this statement? 5 is not greater than 6, as we all know. So the Boolean result will be false. Please note that Python is case sensitive. So false is not equal to false with a small f. Alright, in the similar fashion, if you wrote 6 greater than 5, what do you think the result of this would be? It is true with capital T. Okay, so when you're learning data types, you must also learn when to use the data type. In our video of variables, we added 2 numbers. In this program, we had 2 variables. Both of them are numbers. Then we took a third variable, then we printed C. So it was successfully printed as 8 because we had given it numbers. So Python can successfully make calculations on similar data types. If I were to change one of these as a string, as we have already covered, that strings are data type with single quotes and double quotes. So if I write 5 in single quotes, then it will be treated as a string and not a number. How about we check it out? Let's print the data type of B, which as you know is 5. And let's print the data type of A. So as you can see, it's giving us an error, but we'll get to that later. See the first part of this result. It's class int. So the type of our first variable A is int, that is short for integer. Type of B, we change it with single quotes, is str, that is short for string. Then it's throwing us an error, type error. Unsupported operand types for plus, that is for addition, int, integer, and str string. So basically it's saying that you cannot add an integer and a string. So if I change it back again, let's remove the single quotes and let's run our code again, and successfully it has printed 8. So what do you think would happen if I let the user input their own number? The terminal is empty, it's currently waiting for us to okay, so it has successfully printed, and I wanted to show you this, and that's why we wrote a function to print the data type of A and B. So the data type of A is again a string and B is a string. Okay, so why is that happening? We typed two numbers, we did not type strings. Actually, whatever the user inputs in Python, it is taken as a string, and then it is up to the programmer to convert it into the supported data type that they want according to the program. I want these to be numbers. I want the 5 and 3 to be numbers. So I would have to change it to integer. Let's make necessary changes. So I typed int function for variable A and variable B, and let's try to run our code again. Just waiting for input 5, 3, and there you go. And now you can also see that class of A previously was a string and now it is int. We can also make the same change if you want here. In such a case, we won't have to type int at the top of our variable. We can delete this. Our code will still run successfully. Let's type 5 and 3. See, the answer is 8. And now you can see that the class of A was a string first. Similarly with B, the class of B was a string. But the answer is 8. And this would be fun, that print type of C. Let's run our code and our numbers. As you can see, that since we converted A and B at the time of giving C a value, the result was an integer. So I hope that it was not too confusing. Today, let's take a look at list and tuples. This is how you define lists in Python. First of all, let's say we want the names of all the fruits that we have. So let's assign a variable fruits and then is equal to sign and then square brackets. Square brackets are what differentiates lists from tuples. So if we were to do this, fruits is equal to parenthesis, then fruits in line 2 is a list and fruits in line 3 is a tuple. Let me give you an example. So let's type few names here like apple separated by comma, banana and orange. Okay, so we have 3 fruits in our list, and let's say we have grapes and then guava and then we have carrot. Okay, so I've differentiated between the fruits so that we can clearly see what's going on. And right now I'm not going to print. Let's give them a little different variable name because it's going to confuse. Okay, so let's print the data type of fruits1. So let's type print function and then type function and then our variable fruits1. And in next line we are going to use print and type function and then fruits2. So let's run this code, and as you can see that fruits1 has a class of list and fruits2 has a class of tuple. So So the difference is basically just these square brackets. But with it, the actual difference in Python is that lists are editable. You can add things in it and you can delete things from it. But tuples are immutable, means you cannot mutate them, you cannot change them, you cannot add values to them, and you cannot delete values from them. Let's see that in example. So let me just delete this. What if I want to add another fruit in the fruits list? So let's say fruits1 dot append. This is the method that you use to add something in list. So let's say we want to add papaya. Okay, now let's print our list fruits1. So there you go. We have successfully added papaya with the help of dot append method. Let's try to do the same with fruits list. Fruits2 list. So fruits2 dot, as you can see that the methods that we were seeing with fruits1 are not currently appearing, because these are all the things we can do with tuples. We can see the index of any particular value in our tuple. So if I want to know the position of guava in our tuple, so I'm just going to type guava, and it is going to see if guava is currently in our tuple or not. So I'm going to just print the value, and it is saying that guava is at 1 position. As you already know by now that in Python the numbering starts from 0. So both in list and tuple the position will be 0, 1 and 2 for apple, banana, orange respectively. Same goes with the tuple grapes, guava and carrot. So I'm currently going to just delete my tuple, and we are going to keep our list in action. So what else can you do with lists? Just like you can append extra information, it can be in a string format or integer format. Let's add something in integer. So like I want to add the number 10. Now let's just print our list. Okay, let's run the code, and it has successfully added number 10. Just like in tuple that we have just seen, you can find the index of any particular value in our list. So with the count method, we can find out how many times has particular value appeared in our list. Suppose if apple has appeared twice, we have written so, we can find out the count of how many times apple has appeared, and that's 2. Sometimes what happens is you get duplicate values, and this is how you find if particular value has appeared more than once. I would highly suggest you to go through this one by one and see what each of these methods do. For example, if you want to clear all items from your list, you can just use the clear method, and if you print it, as you can see, it is returning none value. It's not returning any error. It's just saying none, which is Python's equivalent of absence of any value. It is saying that currently fruits1 list does not have any value. Similarly, you can use several other methods like remove method if you want to remove particular value from our list. Let's say if we want to remove banana, since we have already written the print statement in line 4, let's print the value, and there you go. Now we have only apple, orange and apple. It has successfully removed banana from our list. Let me show you one more function, the pop function, which comes quite handy. The pop method removes only the last item from our list. In this case, it will remove apple, which is written at the last. Let's print our list, and there you go. It has successfully popped or removed the last item, which was apple. If you want to see the difference, let's type papaya, and this time when we run the code, it's going to remove papaya because it removes the last item from the list. See, apple is back and papaya is gone. So that's how lists work. So let's move on to how you can assign all of these values to individual variables. We want to assign each and every fruit to a basket. Let's say basket 1 should have apple, and basket 2 should have banana. Since we have only 5 items, it's not going to take long. Suppose if we had 10 or 20 or several other items in our list, this code will become too long and a little bit messy. Sorry, I made a mistake there. So there's a better way to do this. And we don't need apple here. We can create all the variables on the left hand side of our equal to sign. So basket 1, comma basket 2, basket 3, and so on. Sorry, I've been making errors. So basket 2, basket 3, basket 4, basket 5. Alright, now you only need to type your list, that's fruits 1, and it will assign the values one by one. Let's see it in action. Print basket 2. See, we have banana assigned to basket 2 variable. You can use this assignment in many other ways. I hope you have used range function in for loop or while loop. We can similarly use a list to loop over it. Let's see that in action. For items in fruits 1, as you remember, the for loop ends with a colon and the indentation is right beside for block. Let's just print our items. And there we go. It has accessed each and every item in our list fruits 1. This is a great way to organize items in your list. Okay, so I would highly suggest you to create something using for loop or while loop and using list. And please make sure to create many more things with all these methods. I wanted to show you this one, that with copy method you can create another copy of this list. Right now we are not going to see any difference because it's just going to be the copy of fruits 1 list. There you go. But what you can do is you can assign this to a new variable, for example list 2. So all the items from list 1 has been assigned to list 2, and if we change the items, for example list 2 dot append, let's add a new fruit here, pomegranate. And now if we print both of our lists, let's print fruits 1 and then print list 2. There you go. Fruits 1 list remains unchanged and we can successfully add new items after making copy of the first list. And in similar fashion, you must also try tuple. Tuple is also an iterable object. Sometimes we get confused that iterable, it sounds a little weird. Iterable is just an object that allows us to access its values one by one. For example, let's type a tuple. Okay, list is equal to, then parenthesis, as you know, tells Python that this is going to be a tuple, not a list. So let's type 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Now we can iterate over this particular tuple. So for, let's say, item in list, and we are simply going to print our items. And there we go. It has successfully printed the items one by one. I hope you like this video, and if something feels confusing, then please do share it in the comment section below. Let's learn string formatting in Python. So let's just get right into it. You know that when we want to print a particular type of string, we want to format it correctly. And I'll explain you what I mean in multiple sessions of this video. We want to cover how to display the values of a dictionary properly, a list, how to work with date and time formats. So let's look at them one by one. First of all, let's try something very simple and something very basic that we all do in the beginning of our Python programming. I've defined two variables, first name and last name, and assigned Krishna and Sonakia individually to those values. As you can see, I've separated them with single apostrophes. And as you already know that when you differentiate something with single apostrophe or double apostrophe, the values become a string. So now what do I want to do? I want to print Krishna Sonakia is an app developer. So how do I do that? As you can already see, I've commented out all of these lines from 5 to 11, and we'll see them one by one. For now, let's hide them and let's print out what I just told you. Okay, so if you want to print Krishna Sonakia is an app developer, first of all, you have to write the print statement. And then you have to pass the values. First value will be our first variable, that's first name. And then, as you already know, that we can concatenate strings or we can concatenate same data types in Python. Let's add this to our last name variable. So we have successfully printed, and I'll run the program right now. We have successfully printed first name and last name. Let's see that in action. And on the right side, you can see that Krishna Sonakia is printed. Ignore the fact that Krishna Sonakia is currently jammed together without any space. Okay, so what do I need to do to make it prettier? Let's finish our sentence, and now I'm going to add another string, which is going to be is an app developer and full stop. Okay, so let's run our code again. So right now what is happening? We have properly added spaces when we wrote our code, but Python is not differentiating between it. Python is thinking that we want to add Krishna without any space, then Sonakia again without any space. We want to print a complete string is an app developer. Not only that looks messy, it's actually a little bit harder and confusing to fix. Let me show you. So if you want to add a space between first name and last name, we have to concatenate another string, and that will be just a space. So let's create our string with a space. That's all we need to do. And then add this particular thing with the rest of our strings. Let's run our code. And as you can see, Krishna Sonakia is currently separated. And if you want to add another space, you can either put a space before is, and that will fix our problem. Now Krishna Sonakia is an app developer, is looking fine, is looking alright. But these changes become a bit harder as you write more and more complex lines. We don't want to do that. We want to throw in some dynamic codes, and Python supports all of this. So let's type the same statement and see what we can do with it. I'm going to remove the comment of 5th line. I removed it by shortcut Control/. Okay, so what did I do there? Okay, so in line 6th, as you can clearly see, the code looks a little bit different. I'm not going to comment it out. I'm going to type it in so you can see it in action one by one, how it is being done. So let's write our print function, and then we are going to pass F. This F tells us that what string we are going to create is a formatted string. Let's type 2 inverted commas or single. As you have already seen in my video of data types, that if you want to add a line that has some inverted commas in it, then you want to separate your start and end with double inverted commas. So what do you need to do next? Next, you need to add placeholders where you want to add these codes. So in the first placeholder, we are going to type our first variable, that's first name, then a space just like that, no need to concatenate anything. Then second placeholder for our second variable, that is our last name, and then just with a space, and we can write rest of our string as it is an app developer and full stop. Let's try to run and see if our first print statement is similar to our second print statement. Alright, so both of them are same, and as you can see, line 5th looks much cleaner, is easier to type, and looks much more dynamic than line 4. So I'm going to comment out line 4. Since we don't need this line as well, I'm going to delete it. Okay, further, what is another dynamic method to pass the values of our first variable and second variable? Let's take a look. We can access .format method of a string function. Let's comment this out and let's work towards another great feature of Python. We can simply write print and then begin typing a string as we always do. We'll just add 2 placeholders without any values in it, and then is an app developer. As you can see, this method is much quicker. You don't need to wait for anything. Now, After typing our string, you need to add a dot to access all the methods that you can do with this string. For this one, we need the format method, and as arguments, and don't worry, don't confuse yourself, arguments are just values that go into that particular function or method, and these are just features, the qualities of this method, what this method can do. So again, what this method can do, this method can have two values. The two values are first name separated by comma and then last name. So as you have seen, the first name value will be assigned to our first placeholder right here, and then our last name value is going to be assigned in our second placeholder. So let's see if we are right, or will it throw any error. Let's print it out, and there you go. And just for the sake of avoiding confusion, let's type is an app developer to is a web developer, and there we go. Without any error, we have successfully printed it out. After this, another cool thing that you can do is you can assign values according to their position. So let's just comment it out, and let's focus on line 9. This one is the same, so I'm going to delete this and focus on line 8. What I did there, I just wrote the positions, and let us start these with positions 0 and 1. As you already know that positions or any numbering in Python starts with 0. So the position of first name will be 0 and position of last name will be 1. So in here, let's print out. So right now it is saying Krishna Sonakia is an app developer, fine. And if we switch the positions, 1 for the first placeholder, and as you can see, as I typed 1 in this first placeholder, the last name got highlighted, telling me that if I were to print it out right now, the first placeholder will take the value of last name. So in the second placeholder, I'm going to type 0. And as I typed it, you can clearly see that with 0, it has highlighted the first name variable. So how about we print it out? Will it still show Krishna Sonakia as an app developer? Nope, it is showing Sonakia Krishna is an app developer. So that's how you change position, and sometimes you're going to need this. So that's the basics of Python string formatting. Let's do string formatting in dictionary data type. So I'm going to delete all of this, and then I'm going to create a dictionary. There we go. So I've already created a program and then commented it out, and we'll go through it one by one. So I've created a dictionary. Let's now remove all the comments. So I've created a dictionary named programmer. Okay, then I have used PEP8 convention to properly write the key and value pair of 3 keys. The keys are name, age and profile, and the values respectively are Krishna Sonakia, 30 and app developer. So now we want to print a statement, which is this is the profile of Krishna Sonakia, age 30, working as an app developer. So there are just so many ways to do that. The simplest, fastest and using the best practices of Python is what you're seeing right now. So what we are doing here, I'm going to comment this one out so we can discuss how it is being done. Let's create a variable which is sentence. Let's begin typing our string as if it were any other sentence. Let's start our string with double quotes. This is the profile of. Now take a pause. If you remember, we need a placeholder. We are not going to write anything here. Just this is the profile of, then age, then a placeholder for age key, working as a. Again we need a placeholder for the profile key, and then we add a full stop, and our string is complete. So now we need to access the dot method, and again we are going to add a format, and now we are going to pass some values. Okay, so what are we going to pass? We can simply write programmer, but that will throw an error. We want to unpack this dictionary. And how do you unpack a dictionary? While using double star. So it's going to unpack the dictionary, but how is it going to know what values where to put. How about I just type 0 position and then 0 position. Let's see if it gives an error. So it's out of range. Okay, so let's type the keys here, name, then age key for the value of age. Then we are going to type profile, and there you go. All the errors are gone. Now we are going to just print it. So it is successfully printing. This is a profile of Krishna Sonakia, age 30, working as an app developer. My mistake there. Okay, so that's how you unpack a dictionary and provide values to it. Let's take it to the next level. We are going to learn how do you do string formatting in class. So it might look a little bit complicated, but I'm going to take you one step at a time. Let's remove all the comments, and here is what we did. First of all, we have created a class named programmer. As you already know that all classes end with colon. Then we have defined a function. So this function is a magic method. As you already know that these magic methods are known as dunder, means double underscores methods. Now we need to define some variables, some arguments, or specifically, very simply, we just need to define some values in it, so that when this class is called, there are some variables with values attached to them. First of all, we have defined the self variable. It's already an inbuilt variable inside Python that points, that directs towards this class. It's saying that whatever we are going to do should be referred as class programmer. Okay. Then we are going to define some more variables, name, age, profile. We need to define these variables right in these parentheses so that we can call them and assign values to them. After this self method, we can call the name variable and assign a value to it. You can assign fixed values, like I could assign a string here, and then if I were to type this self.name, it would display that name. But I want to be a little more dynamic, and we'll assign values later on. So self.age is age and self.profile is profile. Okay, then we have created a variable p1. The p1 derives everything from programmer class. Okay, the programmer class will assign values as per their position. So whatever we are going to write in the first 0 position will be assigned to the name variable. Okay, on the second position, this age is going to be assigned. On the third position, this app developer is going to be assigned to profile variable. So I hope you got that. If you want to print a sentence that this is a profile of Krishna Sonakia, name, age, working as an app developer, the same sentence that we printed out earlier, this is how you do it. I'm going to comment this out, and let's type it from the beginning, and let's hide it as well. Let's type sentence, create a new variable that's called sentence, and we can begin typing as it is, as if nothing has happened. So this is the profile of, now we need a placeholder. So we'll create a placeholder of Krishna Sonakia, age, another placeholder, working as an, and then profile placeholder, and full stop. Now by now you already know that we need to access the dot format method here. So let's type dot and then format. Now what we are going to use as argument or value, we are going to use p1. What's going to happen here is the program will go to here p1, then it will look for its value. Its value is deriving from programmer class. In programmer class, as I've already shown you, that all of these values pertain to specific variables which are already defined here. So how about we print it? Is it going to print it directly, or is it going to throw an error? Okay, so it is currently throwing an error. Replacement index 1 out of range for positional arguments tuple. What happened there? Actually, we didn't define it where to place anything. We need to define a position, the position that's coming from just this one tuple. So since it is the first place, which is known as the 0 position, and then we need to define the key here, the first variable that we want to print out here. Since we want to print out the name, let's type the name. Again, now an age. What's the position of our variable here? 0. Now dot, and we want to print age. Okay, working as an, again, position is 0 of our variable, and then dot, and what we want to print? The profile. Let's see if it runs. And there we go, the error is gone and it is successfully printing. This is the profile of Krishna Sonakia, age 30, working as an app developer. That's how you print out a class with .format method. I hope that was fun. Okay, so let's take a look at another method, the key value pair. The use of key value pair removes any need of the positional argument that we have currently defined in this line 10. I've commented it out and we are going to type it anew. Let's comment these lines out. Sorry, not the printer statement. Okay, let's type a variable, that's sentence for us, and let's type our string as if nothing has happened. So this is the profile of, then placeholder for name variable, then age variable, and then working as an profile variable with its placeholder. Please do not forget the placeholder. And after that, full stop. Then we are going to, as always, need the format method. And now is the important part. We are going to add keyword arguments or keyword values to be simplistic in terms. Please note that PyCharm is currently telling me you can do two things. You can either begin typing the object, you can begin typing the values, or you can begin typing keyword values. The KWArgs stands for keyword argument. So that's what we are going to do. We are going to type keyword arguments. So let's type name. The spelling should be same as the variable that you have defined in the class. So name is equal to, let's say this time, Megha. Okay, and the age, comma, then the age is 27. Then further we are going to provide the profile as a software developer. Okay, this should also be in a string. I messed up a little there, so let's fix it. So it has successfully taken the value. Profile is equal to software developer. I'm going to press Ctrl Alt L so that all the lines are properly formatted. Now I'm going to print this. And there you go, we have successfully printed. This is the profile of Megha, age 27, working as a software developer. I messed up again. As a software developer. So there you go. That's how you print keyword arguments in class. So right now we have discussed enough about a string. Now we are going to discuss how to format numbers. So this is our program. We are going to learn string formatting in numbers. I'm going to remove all the comments from our first program. Here we are going to do a for loop for the variable I. It could be anything, I confuses people. So I'm going to type for number, for number in range 1 to 11. I've typed 1 to 11 so that it should not start with 0. That's all there is to it. So it's going to print out the numbers 1 through 10. How about we test it? I'm going to comment out these and I'm going to just print number. Okay, let's print it, and it has successfully printed 1 through 10. Okay, we don't need it anymore, and let's bring back these two lines. So I've created a variable sentence and we want to print out the value is, then any sign. I'm just assuming that we want to print a currency, and if you want to print a currency you can have the currency symbol there. After that you need a placeholder, just like previous examples that we have seen till now. So how about we comment this out and then type it anew so that you can learn it better. So let's type sentence, and then the value is, I'm going to skip the currency symbol for now. We need placeholder, okay, and then we'll call the dot method. So dot format, and what are we going to format here? We are going to format the number variable that we were showing the range of, okay. So what is it going to print right now? Let's see. Currently our print sentence has wrong indentation. Let's fix it, and it is done. I've pressed Ctrl Alt L to reformat the code so that indentation is proper. Okay, so it is successfully printing the value of all the range of 1 through 10. Now if we want to display zeros before all of these numbers, we can do so by placing, first of all, a colon sign. That tells us that we need a formatted number string. Then we can tell it if we want zeros and the places. This will print out 2-digit format with zeros in front of them. Let's see. There you go. It is printing out 0, 1, and when it gets to the value of 10, it already sees that it's already at 2-digit places, so it doesn't use any zeros before that. You can use this if you want to keep a column in particular width. Now you can do this up to any number of times. Let's say 10. There you go. That looks odd, but that's how you do it. So let's bring back to the more linear form. Okay, now let's see how you deal with the decimal numbers. So I'm going to comment all of this out. I have taken the value of pi in this program up to 8 decimal points. If I want to print out only 2 decimal points, here's what I need to do. I'm going to type another variable. Let's call it sentence3, and let's comment all of these out and hide them. So sentence3 will tell us, let's begin our string. This is the value of, we need placeholders. In this placeholder we are going to type colon, so that again the Python knows that we need formatted numbers in it. Then we will type a dot symbol. This dot would tell us that we need a decimal formatting for this number. Then the places up to which we want the decimal numbers to appear, and F for floating point value. After this doesn't end it. After completing the string, you need to access the dot format method. Okay, so let's type dot and then format. Sorry there, format. And now what are we going to pass here? We are going to pass our pi variable. Unfortunately, for some reason my pi value has disappeared, so I'm going to just bring it back. There we go. Okay, so let's print out sentence3 and remove this because we don't have a code for it. It might throw an error. And there you go. It has successfully printed out. This is the value of 3.14. What if we were to display up to 4 decimal places? So you only need to duplicate this line, okay, so that you can see the changes. Let's type sentence4 and then change this 2 to 4 for 4 decimal places. Then we are going to just duplicate the print statement with Ctrl D. That's a shortcut in PyCharm to duplicate lines. And print out sentence4, and you can see that it has successfully printed out 3.14 for our sentence 3 and 3.1416 up to 4 decimal places in sentence 4. So that's how you format decimal points. Let's remove all of this, and finally this is our final program. In this lecture we are going to see how to format DateTime function in Python. So I'm going to bring the code here. Okay, so this is the whole code. Please don't get intimidated by it. Actually, I'm just going to hide this one. Let's one by one bring our code in one place, and let's delete all of this. We don't need that. So let's start one by one. Okay, as you already know that we need a DateTime function for this to work. So we'll import the DateTime module from Python. If it confuses you that how do we create such a large piece of code with just some import functions, then I would like to tell you that we already use libraries which are individual files inside our Python installation. We access those files via import command. Let me show you this DateTime file. Let's go to project, then external libraries, then this Python 3.8 installation directory. After this, you can click on library. You will find the DateTime file right here. If you want to load it, you can see that all this code is hard coded inside this file so that you can use individual functions wherever you want. I'm going to just close it and just hide that panel. Our first step is to import the DateTime module, which we did with that command. After that, we are going to create a variable. The variable could be anything. I'm going to just type my date, and again we are going to include DateTime module here, then a dot for its functions. These are all the functions related to that file or module. Okay, so we need the DateTime function from here. After that, we can pass the values or arguments. So the values here it is expecting is year, month, day, and rest of the hour, minute, and second. All of them should be in integer format. So let's do this. Let's type today's date, that's 2020, then comma, and then we are going to type 3, not 03, then comma 3 again, and then hour. It is currently 3 p.m. here, so I'm going to type the 24-hour convention here, which is going to be 15, and then comma the minutes, that's 53 minutes, and then seconds. Let's type arbitrarily 10 seconds have passed. So that's our variable assigned with the help of DateTime function. Now what do we need to do? We want to print out this particular format into the format we want. So let's type sentence. We are creating a variable sentence that will hold the values of this. Now we are printing the date as, this is what we are printing, and now you can format all of these values according to the way you want. So first of all, we need a placeholder as always. In this placeholder, we start with colon to tell it that this is a numbered formatting. After this, you need to know what numbered formatting Python uses for date. For this, you need to open Chrome, search for the DateTime function. I'm going to just search it for you. Type DateTime function Python, and here you can see the docs python.org. Let's click on it. In that we want to format string and behavior. Let's click on this anchor tag. It has successfully brought us down to here, and this whole table, if you can learn it, please do. If not, it's always going to be there. So what we need to do, we want to print the year, we want to print the month, and we want to print the day. So what we can do with it? Let's open PyCharm again, and first of all I'm going to print the day actually, which is going to be D. Then I'm going to print the day, then year. Okay, then we want to pass the dot format method. What are we going to pass now? The my date variable here, and then again we are going to print this particular sentence. Let's see if it throws an error or successfully prints out the date. So we have successfully printed out 3 March 2020. How did we do that? We used the DateTime function, and then we used the formatting as this. So let me just show you. Let's hide it. So we used %d. %d tells us day of the month. So it has successfully printed out 3 March 2020. So D stands for the day of the month. Pin this so that we can see it. Okay, so that's third day, okay, in decimal format. After that we printed %b, which equates to month as locale's full name, January, February, in text format. After that we printed out %y, which is the year with century as a decimal number. So it will print out the whole 4 digits, and that's how we printed out this particular date. You can customize it according to your liking. So with all of that, I'm going to leave you with one exercise. I want you to print this. Let's just comment the whole thing out so that we can hide it. I want you to print when is Diwali coming in 2020. I want you to print this. Diwali is going to be on Saturday. I've already looked up the date, so November 2020, which is then how many days would have passed for 14th November, day of the year. That's what we want to print. So think about it and then come back for a solution. So we'll start right from here. You don't need to do much with it. You just need to type the exact date. First of all, here. Since we have not printed out any hour, minutes or seconds, we can just remove those values or arguments. So I have removed that in this comma as well. So when is Diwali going to be in 2020? It's 14 November 2020. So the year is fine. The month should be 11, and then the day should be 14th. Now we're going to use the directives that Python uses according to this table. So what we want to do here, let's delete our previously written sentence variable and let's write it anew. Sentence is equal to begin string. Now Diwali is going to be on. We want to print Saturday here, so we need a placeholder, and then we want to print the name of the day. So let's see. The name of the day, Sunday, Monday here. So we need %a to display the name. So let's start with column so that it knows that we want this particular module to be formatted. Then %a, okay? Then comma. After this, you can create multiple placeholders, but for this we don't need that. We can begin typing, comma, and then we want the day in digit format. For this, we need the numbers, okay? So the day of the month, that is %d, okay? Small d. And then we want the month, that is, I think %m. The month January, that's %b actually. Thank God we saw it. So %b. So the year is going to be %y. And we are done. After this, we can add a comma, which is done. Now we want to add a calculation. Let's add a placeholder here and then colon. And then we need to learn how to calculate it and if Python has a particular directive for it. So let's look for it. %j. Day of the year as a 0 padded decimal number. So day of the year, how many days have passed. So we can use %j. Okay, after the placeholder, we can type day of the year full stop. And I think I placed, okay, that's good. So now we can print this particular sentence. To keep it simple, I'm going to print here and then sentence, and I'm going to just comment out this line and hide all of this. So it looks much cleaner. And now I'm going to run this code. And let's hope we don't run into any error. But hey, did we lose something? Did we forget something? Actually, we forgot the most important part, the .format method. So let's type .format, and what are we going to pass here? My date, the variable. Okay, let's print this out. Alright, so something odd has happened there. Replacement index 1 out of range for positional argument tuple. The same thing. Actually, you need to do just one little thing. You need to pass the position of this particular variable. The position is 0. you can pass the same thing, both of those, so that it can go to myDate function, bring out all the modules of that Python directive file that we just saw, that table, and then place the values in their respective places. Now let's run the code. And there we go. Diwali is going to be on Saturday, 14th November 2020, which is the 319th day of the year. You can play with it, you can format it according to you. Alright friends, that was really fun, and I hope you have learned how to format strings in Python. In the next lecture, we'll learn something more, something new in Python. Today, we will learn about logical operators in Python. So let's get started. Let's open PyCharm. Okay, so Python supports three types of logical operators: AND, OR, and NOT. So let's see them one by one in action. Suppose we want to create a program where we are required to check a student's application and their age. So let's create a simple program. Applicant. This will be our variable to hold the values of applicant. So if our applicant is a student, okay, and their age is 18. Now we can begin typing our if statement that checks for the value of applicant. Okay. Now if applicant is equal to, and we need double equals for a comparison operator. This assigns this particular string to an applicant and then checks against the original value. So we have already assigned this applicant is equal to student, and now and age is less than, suppose 25. If age is less than 25, then let's print something, and always remember to end your if statements with colon. Now we can print a message that applicant is eligible for exam. Okay, we have already seen that some exams do require you to be that you are currently studying and of a certain age. So if the applicant's age is under 25, then he or she is eligible. If they are not eligible, so we need an else statement and then colon. Since we are not specifying anything to compare, we can just print out an else statement. Applicant is not eligible. Now let's print it. So right now what is happening? Since our values are applicant is a student and the age is 18, which is currently satisfying our answer, it checks for the condition applicant has the value of a student and age is definitely under 25 because it's 18. So both of those conditions are true, this one and age. So AND operator checks for all the values, be it 2, 3, 5 or limitless. All the conditions must be true for AND statement, and when the result is true, then we can print whatever we want to print as a result. Otherwise, if any single condition is false, suppose let's change the age to 26 and now run the program. What is going to happen is the first condition, the program will read the first condition, applicant is definitely a student, but applicant is not of the age under 25. So let's run this, and there you go. First condition was true, but the second condition was false, and that's why the overall result was passed on to this statement. Now since we have already placed less than 25, if our student is 25 years old, then also we are going to get a false result. There you go. So if you want to check if a student is less than 25 and equal to 25, you just need to press an equal to there. See, now our applicant is eligible for exam because the applicant is of 25 years in age. So now let's check for OR operator. In some exams, you just need to be either a student, and when there is no age limit, it checks for just one condition. If one condition is true, then the result is true. So in this program, what it does, let me just reformat the code by pressing Ctrl Alt and L. What it does is it checks applicant is a student, fine, that's true. So it stops the code right here and prints out the statement following that if statement. it's going to print applicant is eligible for exam. Now let's make one of these conditions false. Let's type student is not a student, uh, it's an employed person. We could actually write anything because that string should match exactly the value of applicant in line 4. Just for this example, let's type employed. So applicant is employed, but the age is under 25. So the result is still going to be true. See, the applicant is still eligible for the exam. For an OR statement to be false, both of those conditions, actually all the conditions must be false. So if applicant is employed and the age is greater than 25, it should not be equal or less. So the age should be, if it is 26, then you can check both of these conditions are false. Applicant is not a student and applicant is not under or equal to 25. So let's print it. And there you see, applicant is not eligible. So that's how you use an OR operator. Now the final one, not operator. The not operator actually reverses the situation. It's actually a little bit confusing what not operator does, but let's see that in action because it's really easy. Actually, it is quite frankly the most readable code you'll find in Python. It checks for a reverse value. For example, if not applicant equal to employed. So what's happening here is it's checking if the applicant is not employed. If the applicant is not employed, then he is eligible for the exam. Please read it once more. If the applicant is not employed, then he is eligible. And if he is employed, then he is not eligible. Okay, let's print this. Applicant is eligible for exam. Let's change it to student. So if applicant is not a student, then is eligible, and if applicant is a student, then he's not eligible. So these are the conditions, right? The program goes here. It sees that applicant is a student. That means he's not eligible. So let's run the code. And as you can see, applicant is not eligible. Let's change the applicant, the value to anything. We could actually write just a smaller case student and it will do whatever we say. Okay, let's change it to employed. Now the program goes on line 4, sees the value of applicant is employed. Now remember what we said, if applicant is not a student, so our applicant is an employed person, he or she is eligible for exam. And there you go, applicant is eligible for exam. So again, the not operator checks for the reverse value, and it's confusing to think but really easy to implement. It checks for the original value, compares it against the condition, and if the result is false, then it prints out that true value. Otherwise, it prints out the false value, which is written in the else statement. And as you practice about not statement more and more, it will become much more clear. So that's it for now. Today we are going to take a look at while loop in Python. So let's get started. Okay, so let's create a really simple program so that we can learn how while loop works. First of all, we are going to create a variable and initiate its value with 1. Okay, then we are going to write our while loop. While. Now while checks a condition to the point it is true, then we can print what we want. Okay, so while a is less than 10, let's just say, and every while loop ends with a colon. Okay, so as you can see, the indentation is under while loop. That tells Python program that what we are going to write currently should go in while block. Okay, now we are going to print something until the moment a is less than 10. So let's print this is great. Okay, if I run the program at this moment, do you know what's going to happen? Let me show you. As you can see, we are currently in a forever loop. It is called an infinite loop. because we have not defined what you want to do with each loop. Okay, it checks the condition. First of all, a is given a value of 1. Then it comes to while loop. It checks that a is less than 10. Okay, so it's 1. So it runs first time and prints this is great. Then it keeps on checking it 10 times, but it does not find a break statement to break that loop or what to do when it's done checking this. So it keeps on printing this is great infinitely. If we were to tell it that here's what you do, when you run it the next time, just add +1 to my value of a. Let's run this code, and there we go. We are out of this infinite loop and it has printed this is great. What I want to show you is how you can place the value of a there. See, so what's going on here? It's only showing 1 through 9. It is because it checks the value until a is less than 10. Since at the 10th time a is going to be equal to 10, it recognizes it as a false value. And as I just told you, that while loop runs until the result is true. And when it is false, it breaks apart and just ends that loop. We can also write an else statement with a while loop so that after the last iteration, after the last loop, it will print out that statement. So in else block, I'm just going to write end of while loop. That's printed. And as you can see, that end of while loop did not run 10 times. It only ran at the last of the 9th loop. First of all, let's fix this looping. We want it to run 10 times. So I'm just going to edit this comparison operator and add an equal to after less than sign. So now we are saying that while a is less than or equal to 10, run this is great. And when you run this is great first time, go to line 5th and check to see how many increments I want to do with it. Since I want to add 1 to the last value, add that and print it again until while loop becomes false. And after you are done looping every single iteration or after every single loop, print the else statement, which is end of while loop. So where can you use it? For example, you are running laps and you want to record each lap. You can just replace this string to laps, and at the else statement you can just write completed all laps. Now this makes a real world sense. See, so laps 1, 2, 3 up to 10 and completed all laps. So this is how while loop works. It checks for the value to be true and runs until the condition is true. And when the condition returns false, it breaks that loop. Now what if you want to break a while loop before completing? You can add a break statement to break the loop. Okay, so suppose you want to break this particular loop at lap 5. So we can add an if statement to check whether value of a is equal to or less than 5, and if it finds that value, it will break the while loop. So I'm going to add an if statement here. If a equals 5 column, it should print lap 5 reached exhausted. Okay, so let's say we want to break this while loop at lap 5. So I've added if condition a equals 5, the value of lap reaches 5. We want to print lap 5 reached exhausted, and then we need to add a break statement so that it will break the loop at this particular point. Let's run the code, and there you go. After completing 5 laps, it has printed laps up to 5. So that's all there is to know in the basics of while loop. Now I want you to print something interesting. I want you to print out the alphabets using while loop. It will be quite interesting. Pause this video, try it yourself, and then come back for the solution. Let's get started. First of all, we need to understand how to begin. For the values, we need to know the ASCII codes, which I have saved on my desktop, of each character. So in here, as you can see, the decimal number for character A is 65. And Python supports converting normal decimal characters into their equivalent alphabets. Suppose we want to print that A. We can print it like this: print CHR, and then in brackets the decimal value 65. So let's see if it prints it successfully. Yes, it has successfully printed A. So we already know the CHR, then in brackets, and the decimal value of that alphabet. We can print that alphabet. Okay, we know that now. So we need a variable to hold those values. So for A, it starts with 65. We want to start with character A, so the value should start with 65. Now we are going to start our while loop. While A is less than, now we want to know the last decimal value of character Z. So let's open our image, and the last value is here at 90th. The character is Z, so we can close this. So we want to see if it is less than and equal to 90. You see, if we do this, if we remove the equal to, it will just print out the values up to 89th decimal number and not include the 90th. So we need to either add 91 here, or we can just keep it 90 and add an equal to here, so that it will run the value up till 90. Now add a colon. So we have successfully written while A is less than or equal to 90. So the range is now 65 to 90. Now we are going to write rest of the loop. So now we want to store the character values in another variable. So that variable can be anything. I'm just going to write B is equal to. We have just seen that we need the CHR function to convert decimal values to their alphabetical values. Now we can write simply our A variable, because with each looping it will pass one value at a time. So in the next line we can simply print out the value of the placeholder for A is, and the placeholder for B. This will show the value of 65 is alphabet A. If you want, you can write alphabet as well. Alphabet A. This is a formatted string. If you don't know how to create formatted string like this, please watch my video on formatted strings in Python. So now we need to access the string format method. So dot format. Then we want to pass the first placeholder value, which is A, and comma, and B for the next placeholder value, and it is done. After that, we just need to increment the value of A. Remember, we want to increment the value of A with each iteration until it becomes 90. Okay, so let's just add A is equal to A plus 1. You can write it like this, but you can also use much shorter form of it and it will still be true. So A plus is equal to 1. The results are same with this. I'm just going to properly reformat the code. Now it looks much prettier. Okay, so we are done. Now if you want, you can add an else statement, else, and then statement learn my ABCs. Okay, let's run this program, and there you go, up to 90th. The value of 90th is alphabet Z, and there you go, we have successfully printed all the alphabets. To keep it more simplistic, let's return the value up till only 70th, and we have successfully printed the numerical value to their alphabetical counterpart in ASCII. So that's how you do it with the while loop. There are just so many ways, and I've just shown you how to do this with while loop. And as you create more programs using loops, you will get much better understanding on how loops work in Python. Today we are going to learn about for loops in Python. So how do you use for loops in Python? Let's get right to it. Looping in Python is just amazing. It's the quickest way to do repetitive tasks, and you have so many of them. For example, you have for loop, you have while loop, you have if-else statements to continue checking for values if they are true or false. For now, let's just take a look at for loop. I hope you've gone through my while loop video. If not, the link is in the description. So let's begin. With for loop, you don't need to assign anything in the beginning. So let's just start our for loop for, and let's just say any number. We are assigning a variable. See, I have not assigned that particular variable anywhere else. So for number, and then we have to assign in a range for the for loop to begin. This is a range function and we need to assign a decimal value in it. So first argument or value should be how many times do you want to run this code. Let's say we want to run it 5 times. Then we end it with a colon, and then the indentation already puts us inside the for block. Whatever we write, whatever we assign until the indentation is under for block, that will go with that for loop. Okay, so I'm just going to print out print number. Let's see what it does. I've written print number in a string and then the number variable so that we can exactly know what number it is. Okay, so when the code ran, it started with 0. As you already know that numbering in Python starts with 0 and then on. So it started with 0 up to 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so whatever number you decide to put there, it's always going to count one less. That's actually very important, because what if you want to multiply something using the range function? You must keep in mind that the multiplication of the very first loop is going to be with 0. So you must assign accordingly. You can rectify the problem if you assign the start point with first decimal. Suppose we want to start with 1 and not 5. Then we add a comma and then assign the stop value here. So now it's going to run just 4 times because as always it counts one less. Let's see that in action. See, so we assigned the start point as 1 and end point as 5. So the loop ran from 1 to 4. If you wanted the loop to run 5 times, then you must assign 1 through 6. There we go. You can also further, it's not a part of for loop but a range function. You can also use step counts to skip values. Let's increase our endpoint to 10 so that we can actually see that. And let's say a step of 2. This means that we want it to skip 2 steps after the first value. And it will continue to skip 2 steps with each loop. Okay, let's try to run it. There we go. So it ran for the first time, great. Then it skipped 2nd position, then the 4th position, then 6th, and then 8th. Suppose we wanted to skip 2 positions, as always it's going to count one less. That's why when we add it, it only skipped 1 place. Okay, let's type 3, and there you go. It skipped 2 places, 2 and 3, and then further 5 and 6. It did not display the 9th position because the last value entered was 10. It skipped it entirely. If you wanted to display 10, then you would need the endpoint as 11. There you go. Okay, so that's how for loop works. You need a variable. You don't need to define it earlier. Then you need to assign how the loop is going to be calculated. Let's create something interesting. Let's create a star pattern, which is very popular in any programming language. So we are going to create a really simple star pattern and you will be able to guess how we did it. So for star in, we are going to use the range function and start our point with value 1 so that it doesn't multiply with 0. And then the endpoint would be 6 because I want the loop to run 5 times. And we don't need steps, so I'm going to delete that comma, end our for loop with colon, and then print star. Print star. Okay, so if I do it right now, let's see what it does. Okay, it has simply printed out star 5 times. What if I want to print a pattern like 1 star at the first loop, 2nd star, 2nd loop, and then all the way to 5 stars when the program finally reaches its 5th loop? It's very easy to do. We just need to multiply this string with our variable star. Why? Because with each loop a star has a different value. Star takes its value from that range function, and the for loop allows it to gain only one value from 1 through 6. So let's see it in action. And there we go. They are currently jammed together, so I'm going to make this string a little bit prettier with just spaces, and it looks much more prettier. That's how we make star patterns. You just need to know how to display certain string, and the for loop will take care of the repetition. So I'm going to leave you with one exercise. I want you to print this particular star pattern in reverse form using the same range that I have currently displayed. We need 5 stars in the first loop and then count down. By the end of 5th loop, we should have only 1 star. So the pattern would look reverse of this pattern. Okay, pause this video, take your time and create that program. Okay, so how do we do that? It's very easy. We just need to add another variable, let's say a. As you already know that it's going to count 1 less. I want 5 stars at the first loop, so I'm going to place 6 as the value of a. Then we need to calculate the pattern and print that result. So we'll store that result in another variable b. Then on the first loop, we'll subtract the first range. Okay, please be with me here. When the loop starts at the first time, this star variable will acquire the first value, okay, which is 1. We need to subtract it from this a variable. So let's minus and then simply type star. With each loop, it's going to replace the value of star, right? It's on the second loop, it's going to place 2 here. 6 minus 2, 4. Great. So with each loop, it's going to subtract the values. Then we need to print b instead of star. So I'm just going to replace this star with b, and now let's print the result. There you go. The pattern is reversed, and we only had to add one more variable and then calculate the result. There are a lot of ways to do this in much more simpler forms. Please show me your method in the comment section below. Today, let's take a look at what are functions in Python. Okay, so Python is a programming language. As a language, you are required to learn few basic things to master that language. As with Python, we have previously covered variables, data types. Now it's time to learn about functions. So functions are inbuilt programs, inbuilt codes that were built when Python was built, so that users could use those codes to make Python do what the programmers want to do. For example, right now, as you can see, our coding area and our terminal area is empty. What if I want to print something? So in Python, a print function was created so that the programmer could print things. Now, let's write a simple print function. Print with brackets. Okay, how about we try to run it? Will it throw an error or will it print something? Let's try to run it. Okay, so right now it has printed nothing, just as it should, because we have not told Python what to print. So how about we print a string like hello universe, our first code with Python. How about we print it now? And it has successfully printed hello universe. So just like print function, its work is to print whatever the user wants to print. It could be a string like this one. It could be result that was stored in a variable. It could be a list. It could be a tuple. It could be so many things. But the basics of that print function is to output something on the terminal screen. Just like print function, we have input function. Input function is required when you want something to be entered on the terminal rather than on this programming window. As you've seen in our previous videos, we type input function when we want to add value to a variable from the side of the user and not the programmer's side. Okay, so let's type a basic input function. A is equal to input function. So when I try to run it, let's run it, the terminal is going to wait for my input. Let's type anything here. Let's type 10 and press enter. So I input something, but nothing has been printed out because we did not write a print function to show the results. Let's type print and then just a. So what will happen here? is when a user types something in the terminal that will be stored in our variable a, and further it will be printed out on the terminal screen. Let's try to run our code and enter 6. Similarly, we can enter anything, because as you've seen in our previous video of data types, everything that you input via terminal, it is stored as a string. How about we try it? Let's run the code and this time type Krishnakant and press enter, and successfully, without even declaring anything as a string, it has successfully printed out Krishnakant as a string. And how about we print out the data type of it just to see if we are right. Let's type Krishnakant again, and yes, it has successfully printed out Krishnakant as a result of a, and then the data type of it is str class, that's short for a string. Just like this one, we have so many other functions inbuilt in Python so that the programmer can do what they want their program to do when it is executed. Okay, so that covers what inbuilt functions are. Similarly, you can create your own functions. So let's create a basic function. Let's define and then the function name. Now the indentation tells Python that what we are going to write after this should be in the define function block. Let's continue. If x and modulus operator 2 is equal to 0, if operator also ends with colon. Now print even, as you know that the modulus operator returns the remainder and not the quotient. As you can see, the else block is right under the if block at the same level, otherwise the code will throw an error. And then we print odd, even, odd, 2, even, odd, 3. So as you can see, it has successfully printed even for the number 2 and then odd for the number 3. You could also dynamically let the user type it in, and then the program will tell the value if it is odd or even. For example, we should write int. Now let's print 5, and it's odd. And if we type 4, let's run our code again. So type 4, it's even. So our code is working successfully. We have created a function even odd, and we can call it in any way that we want in our program. So that's how functions work. Functions store a particular program in them that can be called unanimously throughout the program. It could be inbuilt functions like print and input function, and it could be a function that we created. So I hope functions is a little bit clearer to you, and as you practice more and more problems in Python, you will be able to understand it better. In this video, we are going to take a look at how to configure Python virtual environment in Windows 10. So let's get started. I'm going to open my command prompt, and from here we are going to make a folder. So let's navigate to our desktop and let's make a new directory. So for this example, let's say virtual env example. All right, so the directory has been made. You can see it at the left there. All right, so now let's navigate to that. All right, now to create a virtual environment, you can do so with pip command, but virtual env command is not directly available to you. Let's check for it. Pip show and then virtual env. So as you can see, we have virtual env version 20 in our system, but it doesn't come directly. So pip uninstall virtual env. All right, it's going to take a while, and it's going to ask us whether we want to remove it or not. So let's say yes. Right now let's access the same command, pip show virtual env. and now the package is not found. So by default, this is the state you are presented with when you install Python. So after this, we just need to type pip install and then virtual env to install virtual env package first. All right, and there we go. So we have virtual env package installed in our system. Now we're going to access this command to create a virtual environment in our folder virtual env underscore example. So let's do that. Since we are already in our virtual env example folder, we can simply type virtual env and then the name of the virtual environment. And please note that it can be anything. I can type env there, I can type venv, or I can type, well, let's say you're working on a Flask app, so you can type Flask as well, or maybe Django, or even CJ for code Jana. So let's try CJ and let's see what it did. So I'm going to open my virtual example folder and it has created a folder CJ. Let's open it. And it has created this library folder and scripts folder. So in library folder, we have all the packages that are by default installed with Python. Now, if you want to install further packages, you can do so with pip install, but after you activate that environment. Otherwise, you're going to be downloading and installing them globally. If you want to download and install a package inside this virtual environment, then you need to activate this virtual environment. All right, so let's do that. So that's CJ and then slash, and after that scripts, and press tab to complete that, slash again and then activate. Press tab to complete that again. When you tap enter, you will see a little small parenthesis with the words of your virtual environment. In my case, it was CJ. In your case, it could be something else that you chose when creating virtual environment. Most of the time, we create env or venv, so it will appear at this corner. After this, you can be sure that virtual environment is active. So you can install any library inside it via pip install and then let's say Flask. So there we go. And when you open this and libraries, side packages, now you have Flask in it as well. So this is how you create and activate virtual environment in Windows 10. And if you face any issues regarding this video or any other Python related issue, make sure to leave a comment down below.